good morning. It is 9:30. Once again, we had some technical difficulties, which Colleen coached me through the technical difficulties this morning. So if things go south quickly, you know who I'm going to blame. Carol, happy birthday.
Hey, thanks.
Where's my clicker? Dan is here. I know James is not here. James is on the left coast. Yes. Do you have anything you want to say here, Dan?
Yeah.
There you go.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Wanted to talk a little bit about mortgage rates. If you heard anything in the news, rates are at a 6-month high. And of course, initially that sounds like a horrible thing, but it's really not the end of the world. When rates are low for an extended period of time, as they've been for kind of the last year and a half, we see this, sticker shock or greed element with buyers sometimes, because, there's this misconception that rates are still in the 2s. And as soon as we, peak into the 3s, there's this, like, oh my gosh, the world is ending. And it's really not that bad. So, I enjoyed filling up my car with gas last year for $20-$25, and now it's, closer to 40. And, again, it is what it is. But, just take a look at things a little bit historically. So in January of 2018, which really wasn't, terribly long ago, rates were about 4.25. January of 19, we were around 4.75. January of 2020, around 3.75. So again, that's all really higher than where we are right now. But then, of course, December of 2020, so just about a year ago, we were, kind of in the mid to high 2s. And I think that's what is ingrained in a lot of people's mindsets as far as rates. Right now we're, kind of in the mid to low 3s. So, 3.25, 3.375, which again, if you really look back at the past 3 years, it's still, below all of that. So a little bit of the whys. So when COVID came into play, early last year, the Federal Reserve started buying treasury bonds and mortgage-backed securities. So this essentially artificially brought interest rates down. They were buying about $120 billion a month in these treasuries. And tomorrow there is a Fed meeting, which essentially has been, talk for several weeks now. So that's kind of what's generated pulling rates up. So ultimately what the expectation is that starting, very soon, the Treasury will pull back about $15 billion a month instead of that 120. They're going to scale it back and cut it back about $15 billion a month over the next 9 to 10 months. So eventually, we'll kind of get back to that pushing 4%, perhaps. Obviously, nobody has the crystal ball, but that's really what's being forecasted. So what it really means, and this is the conversation that is important, is it does impact buyers because it impacts their buying power more importantly. And, most buyers aren't going to be impacted by this as far as where their qualification is, but there are some of these marginal buyers that, we're trying to max out, what's the maximum price, what's their maximum qualification. And these are actually the buyers that are going to be impacted a little bit because, if they were pre-approved at 2.75 and, their purchase price was $200,000, let's say, and now we're at 3.25, that's going to impact their buying power by about $10,000. So now instead of 200,000, they're probably going to be maxed around 190. That half a point in interest rate equals about $50 a month based on that type of loan size. But if you really look at, where we end up, so if we end up around 3.75, now that buyer is going to be qualified for about $20,000 less. And I know personally, my pipeline, I'm seeing a lot of buyers, especially first-time buyers, they're there for 6 to 12 months just because of the way the market has been. So, it's not uncommon that I have buyers now that I initially pre-approved 6 to 12 months ago. So I know that myself, as well as James, we're doing our best to kind of go back through our pipeline, especially those individuals that are, pushing their limits and trying to, reconfigure, requalify them. So we make sure they're not out there looking at $200,000 houses when now they're only good for maybe 180, 190. The other thing I wanted to point out is the down payment assistance program through PHFA, which is pretty popular, the PHFA KFIT. Just to kind of give you a snapshot, a little over a month ago, that program, the rate was 3%. It's now 3.625. So this is a very popular program with first-time buyers. Again, it's still a great opportunity because it gives them a grant of up to 5% of the purchase price. But some of these buyers that are marginal, it may impact their overall buying power. So again, you know, we don't have the crystal ball as far as where rates are and where they will go. There's a board that's outside of title. I try to keep that updated on a weekly basis. If you have any specific questions, obviously you can always reach out to James or myself. That's all I have.
Thank you, Dan. And for those of us that have been in the business for quite some time, when we hear things like things go from 3.5 to 3 and 7, I know Mark's been in probably as long as me. Do you remember selling in what type of environment? Right.
And everybody was really happy about that.
I remember when because I was in the business when they were at 16%. And I remember when they got down to 10%, I thought it was heaven. So, you know, putting things in perspective. So, and Sarah and Sherry are here. Are you coming up? Well, she can hold this.
Yeah,
She can hold the receiver.
no more cheering. So we just, you want to do another one?
No, I'm not prepared.
Don't put her on the spot like that. So we just wanted to bring up the fact that as we approach the holiday season, a lot of people tend to forget that there's some bank holidays thrown in there, and you need to make sure that your mortgage company and your title company is going to be open. Take that into consideration when you're scheduling or setting up a settlement, or taking, you know, if you want to do the Monday after Black Friday. Some title companies are closed on Friday. So you have to take all of that into consideration. Make sure with your lender that they're still open, because all those 3-day grace periods get pushed back with the holidays. And it gets a little bit harder to get some tax certifications, some payoffs back, because everybody's going to be on skeleton crews the next 2 months. So we just wanted to bring that up to the forefront now, so you guys can be prepared and get your clients prepared accordingly. She did a great job holding the.
Thank you. And just a word about your business over the next probably 2 months. You heard Sarah say, you know, there's a lot of title companies and courthouses shut down. And we have a tendency as agents to say, well, I think I'll just shut down too. And then come January or February, you realize you have nothing in the pipeline. So just wanted to make sure everybody is aware when you start seeing some of these government agencies take off, we're independent contractors. So just a word to the wise. Okay, James.
Morning, everybody, and I got a few updates as well too. If your customer is having a lease back from the prior owner, just make sure you let me know. That's all I got to say, because it can avoid some problems. That's all I'm going to say. I won't go any further. So, and another thing as well too, my new business processor had advised me that she had 3 or 4 over the past few months there where the closing date changes again. If it would be nice to know that 100% in front of the time before we have to issue the policy, because that can cause headaches as well too, depending on the company. They might have to sign some additional forms like a no loss letter. So, you know, if you know that I'm writing it, which I do contact you guys as well, and the closing date changes, just make sure to let me know. So that's all.
All right, one more announcement before we get started. I'm going to turn it over to Jen and her smiling face this morning.
Good
Good morning. How are you guys? Good to see everybody. So I wanted to just share with you that we have a new addition to our administrative staff. So Adnella Dolik is joining me and going to be doing some assistance with me around my marketplace. So I have been looking for somebody who could take over some of what Kelly has been doing for me. So as many of you probably saw, Kelly Miller actually is doing all the onboarding for the entire company now. So whenever someone joins Homesale, the first smiling face that they come across is Kelly Miller's. So I have had the pleasure of working with Kelly for so long, I didn't know that I would be able to find someone that can help me. But I was so excited when Adnella put her name in the ring, because I certainly know that she's been an amazing part of our team for a long time. She already knows Homesale. She knows a lot of processing and tools. And one of the things that I was really looking for the most was somebody who could cover our front desk in multiple offices. So you guys will see her here at North Point from time to time, covering for Janice or Marion if they're out on vacation. But she will be covering around the marketplace for me as well. And she will be sitting right down the hall next to me when she's not out and about covering an office. So I just wanted to make that announcement here, since you guys all know Adnella already. If you see her at the front desk, I didn't want you to be confused about what she's doing there. So I just wanted to share that. So welcome, Adnella. We're glad to have you. Yep.
And she is going to start at the front desk today. So we're going to throw you to the fire right away. Yeah. All right. So couple things. Can you help me out here, Colleen? Start this. These are bar charts that, there we go. These are bar charts that the company publishes on a quarterly basis. You can find these in Homesale Center. I know I get usually some questions from time to time when people are going out on listing appointments or want to advertise certain things. They'll say, I know we have these bar charts, but I don't know where they are. And I know I'm going to continue to keep getting the questions, but maybe I'll reduce the number of questions by letting you know. If you get on the Homesale Center dashboard, there is a purple button that looks like Team Homesale. And when you get in there, just type in market share in the search box. And once a quarter, these come up. At the end of the year, I know we did it last year, we actually took every school district and did a market share for school districts. So look for that at the end of 2021. But these are great things to have. One of the nice pieces of input that we got on these is we used to publish them, and this was all purple and these were all white. And people were saying it was tough to read, it was tough to put up on a color copier. So we just reversed it based upon some input that we got from you guys. If you do some calculations here, and I'm a numbers guy, as you probably know, if you take the number 2, 3, and 4 real estate companies, we are literally neck and neck with the 3 closest companies if you combine them together. So you guys are doing a phenomenal job. Keep up the great work. And once again, we'll have more figures at the end of the year and the fourth quarter. So I wanted to also tell you that one of the programs that we've had around since 1927, I believe is called Team Builder. And over time, especially with the onset of teams, people were getting confused as to what Team Builder actually was. Was it something to utilize when you're building a team? That's what we were getting a lot of. So we decided to rebrand it and change it a little bit to avoid that confusion. It is called Agent Plus. Colleen, can you help me out again? I got these. It is called Agent Plus. And I just want to make sure that you're aware, if you've never used Team Builder in the past, it is a way that you can supplement your income without actually doing any work at all. And isn't that a nice thing to have? I'm going to share with you a couple things as to ways that, once again, you can boost your income as an agent where you don't even have to sell a house, but somebody else that you're bringing on can help you, once again, with boosting your income. One of the things that you do right away is there's an online, and if you can't find it online, don't worry, I'll print one out for you. It takes literally 2 minutes to fill out a form. If you run into an agent from another office, or if you have a new to business agent that is thinking about getting into the business, all you do is just fill out this sheet or fill it out online, turn it into me, and I'll go ahead and meet with the individual. And if they come online, you are eligible to receive portions of their commission. Donna, was that a hand up? Go ahead. So Donna said it's less than a minute, so I lied. I said it was 2 minutes to fill it out. Yeah. Yeah. So it's online, as Donna mentioned. You can go there and get it taken care of. And by the way, if you are struggling to find it online, I will print one out for you. Don't worry about it. You can earn 1% of the gross commissions each time they settle a home as a home sale realty agent. These checks are cut on a quarterly basis. I get them, and I usually talk to the agent myself personally and thank them for forwarding somebody on to us. And in a second, I'll talk about what that might look like. And finally, you can, once again, you can grow your income without actually selling any additional real estate. And this can accumulate fairly quickly over time. So how does it work? Once again, you get 1% of the gross commission income that they settle. I want to be clear, it doesn't come out of their side, it comes out of the company side. So the agent that you're bringing on is not penalized. They're not penalized. But if you get $1,000 for every person that you bring on based upon how much their production is, and you have 10 referred agents, that's $10,000 a year. Now, we'd love that you get 10 to us a year, but you can accumulate them over time, obviously. So what does that look like? 10,000 a year for 10 years, that's $100,000 of additional income that you can generate for yourself without selling a single house. So I wanted to make you aware of that. The other thing that I want to share with you, because I do see a couple of teams in here, is this is not eligible for team people. So if Mark or let's say Lisa brings somebody on their team, that does not qualify, okay? Now you can recruit a whole team as a standalone, and yes, that would qualify, all right? So, yes, correct, correct. Thank you for clarifying that. Yes. So, thank you, Colin. Sure. Okay.
There is a change, and this is for future reference, but if somebody had somebody on Agent Plus and they decide to go into our referral realty program as part of our Team Builder program, you still will continue to get your Agent Plus individual years on the first year. So don't think if for some reason you're thinking about retiring or leaving the business for some reason, you can still continue to get those residuals over time if that person stays with Homesale and you stay with referral. So just wanted to bring that up too, because that was a change that we had not previously done.
Yeah, thank you. So the company has gotten involved and partnered with a company called Moove Guru. And the handout that I have in front of you This is not intended to be a training session on Moove Guru. This is intended to be an overview of what's coming up. It is going to kick off with the company on December 6th. So it's coming up fairly quickly. There are going to be some training sessions. I know the handout that you have here, I literally got this about, about 5 minutes before the meeting, so I haven't had an opportunity to look at it. But there is a training schedule on page number 2. And when I say training schedule, everybody usually, when you hear training, they're like, oh God, I got to sit in a room for an hour and a half. It's not an hour and a half. It's relatively simple. I know the management group has sat through this. Each agent will have a dashboard. I'm going to get into what this actually means as far as you as an agent and what it can do for you. And as I go through this, the one thing I want to point out, there is no cost to you at all. No cost. So Moove Guru, it makes moving easier. If you look at studies that are done on a nationwide basis and they ask buyers and sellers and they said, what's the biggest hassle that you have when you sell your house? This is usually at the top of everybody's list, is moving and all the hassles that go into moving and getting from point A to point B, and they detest that. And a lot of times we as agents, we're not really involved with that process. We can give them some advice, but it is still a big, huge undertaking. And for those of you that have been in the business for any length of time, you know it is, and you see people get stressed out over this. This Moove Guru assists your clients with utility connections. One of the issues that buyers, especially buyers, have is going into a new place is they have gas hookups and electric and all kinds of utilities that they got to contact all these different companies. Moove Guru will do that for you. They will do that for you and your client. Okay, once again, this is not intended to be a training session. We'll get more into that once you get into the sessions itself. Not only do they help you with the move, but they will continue to help you over time. Not only you, but stay in touch with your clients over time. They will give them valuable discounts and coupons on home type things that they can use around the house. And I think I did see this, and I'm going to look at the bottom of this, Carol. If you look at some of the stuff that's on here, Home Depot's on here, Budget Rent-A-Car, Office Depot. I mean, these are things that people use on an ongoing basis all the time. The one thing that we learned in our training is, I forget the percentage, they said on moving day, like 90 to 95% of people order pizza. And look at what one of the coupons is good for here, okay? So there are 3 different phases of this. The first is called Mover Connect, which is really when things go under agreement, they will be in touch with your clients and they will work with them on, they call it the white glove utility setup assistance, and get them set up so that you don't have to worry that your clients aren't doing it. You don't have to keep reminding them. Second part of this is called Mover Engage. And the third part of this is called Customer for Life. And basically what this is, it stays in touch with your client basically the whole time that they're in their house. Now, one of the concerns everybody has today is being barraged with emails. This comes out on a quarterly basis. So they're not going to be barraged with emails that, and they're not going to be things that they won't find valuable. So I would encourage you, take a look at the training dates here, and you will get, as a company, we're going to send out emails, and I'm sure it's going to be Zoom training. Take a look at those, set aside the times to do this and get involved. And not only is this for people that you're getting involved with a move right now, but you can go back in time. If you have a database of people that you have accumulated over time with buyers and sellers, you can upload, Moove Guru can upload that into the system, and they can start them on this customer touching and customer for life program, okay? And it's something that happens behind the scenes, and you don't have to do anything. It just happens, okay? So look for more details coming up in the training. I think you're going to like it a lot. So it starts on the 15th as a training. And the program kickoff, as I said, is on December 6th. All right. Who attended Jim Goldsmith's? Okay. So I was barraged with things coming out of Jim Goldsmith's presentation. And while I introduced this at the Eden, I didn't stay. So I was totally in the dark when people started talking to me about this. And here was a question that came up that everybody had a hissy fit about. And it's called, can a seller terminate an agreement of sale if the buyer does not deliver the earnest money deposit in the time frame indicated in the contract? My answer, I'm not an attorney, is yes. Jim said something different. Jim said, nope. And I had enough of you come to me and ask me about this that I followed up with our legal counsel. And our legal counsel followed up with Jim Goldsmith. And as you might imagine, there's some backstory to this. So the story here is, can you do it? Absolutely, yes. But here was the situation that Jim described, and I wasn't there at the meeting, so I don't know what was actually said and what wasn't said. So here's what happened. The buyer and the buyer's agent never got the deposit to the seller and the listing agent. The listing agent contacted the buyer's agent and said, hey, you know, yesterday, whatever it is, yesterday you had a deposit was due. Just want to let you know we don't have it. The buyer's agent, once again, I don't know if this was conveyed. The buyer's agent said, oh, I kind of forgot. We'll get this to you. So there was a verbal between the buyer's agent and the listing agent saying, we'll get this to you. Apparently, right after that, they received an unsolicited offer from a second party that was way better than the first offer, and they decided to accept it. Okay. So now you have the first agreement that is out there that technically wasn't terminated. And as Jim described, or as I think people described it to me, apparently this lasted for 6 months, 9 months, a year. The seller put their home back on the market, once again, sold it. And as they're going to settlement, they discover that there is a lis pendens that is filed against the property, and they can't sell it because of the first buyer. Yeah. So anyway, there's more to this story. I just wanted to clarify this because I don't want you to think that as a buyer's agent, you don't have to pay attention to this. You have to get the deposits there on time. And as you might imagine, there was a backstory to this. I'm not sure what Jim said in this meeting, but did he share some of the stuff that I'm sharing with you? Yeah.
And the check was in the mail.
Yeah, and the check was in the mail.
Well, the transaction manager never moved forward with the check, so that the transaction manager got blamed. They found out it was never mailed, it was their fault.
Right.
Not that the agent didn't stay on top of it. But then beyond that, what happened is they gave them so many days to get the rest of the deposit there, because there was supposed to be a later one. And then that one didn't come in time. One day. And by 4 o'clock, instead of waiting until midnight, they come until they come.
Yeah. So for those of you on Zoom that didn't hear any of that, essentially in a nutshell, there was a lot of conversing that was going on behind the scenes. Our attorneys have basically said, stop with the verbal stuff. Make sure that you get the stuff in writing and make sure you get the check, because the more verbal stuff you insert into this, people are to act on that. So I just wanted to bring it up because it did cause a lot of confusion, lots of confusion.
But if you were a listing agent, if you just sent the buyer's agent a termination, doesn't that just end it right there?
I'm not an attorney, but I believe, yeah, there's no,
But they reneged on the time frame they gave.
well,
It's a year later, it's not resolved.
Yeah. So the question came up is, can the seller then sign a termination notice if they don't receive it? I'm not an attorney, but my advice is yes. I would have the seller sign the termination and deliver it to the buyer But then also in any of the termination notices that you read, there's also that bold print in there that says, if you're thinking about putting this property back in the market, you may want to consult a real estate attorney. And it says that right on the termination notice. So I would advise everybody contact an attorney on this one. Okay.
I think that's the yes, but.
Yeah.
I mean, you can terminate anything and anyone can still sue you or file a tenant. So I think that's the big thing and why it's unresolved.
But your reason would be
I agree.
legitimate,
Yeah.
they didn't
Right.
do what they agreed to do for the contract, have the deposit by this date, so that's what you would know, that's your reason for termination.
Right.
They didn't give them the time frame to end it on that bottom line date. They were talking, you have to be.
Well, I don't care about that.
Well, I think that,
Well,
it's
it's
a
a year
year
later,
later.
it's-
I think
it's still
Jim's
litigation.
point is.
Yeah.
And I think the advice to your clients is.
Yeah.
We can do it and we are, and Mark's point is, we're gonna follow all the steps to make sure everything's handled the right way. But be aware that they can still file something and
Every answer you gave was call an attorney, right, Carol?
Yeah, well, I got out of it that you have to have a release, like the buyer has to sign a release. Otherwise, you're stuck.
Once again,
You are,
see an attorney.
yeah.
See an attorney. I know your buyers or sellers don't want to hear that when you say you need a real estate attorney, but we get into more hot water when we start giving legal advice. So let's not do that. Okay.
that's good advice.
So, and I'm going to mention a couple things here, and this is not, I don't want to hear any political discussion here. This is not about politics, but I think you as real estate agents need to know what is in this and what is not in this. Because there's some pretty hefty things, number one, and some things that were put in here that got axed for good reasons. And part of the reason why they got axed is NAR is really, really on top of this and really met with legislators and got some of this stuff removed before it became a problem. So I'm just going to mention a couple of things here. And once again, this is not to be political, but you're going to have people ask you. So here's what is in it. And by the way, when I say what is in it, as of 15 minutes ago, because it's changing almost on an hourly basis and everybody is adding and subtracting and moving things around. But this is the latest that I got. There's 65 billion for Section 8 vouchers. There's 25 billion for public housing, 500 million for housing for people with disabilities, 7 billion for first-time home buyers, blah, 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 so on and so forth down the road. There's a lot of B's and M's in there. Billions and millions of dollars, okay? The one thing, and once again, I said I don't want to be political here, but the one thing that I think everybody was missing the mark when they're doing this type of stuff, do we have a demand problem or do we have an inventory problem? We have an inventory problem. Everything that's up here deals with, let's get more demand into the marketplace. And that's, I think we're just missing the mark. But it is what it is. Here is what got axed. And you can thank NAR for doing this. Establish 1031 like-kind exchange limits. Now, a lot of you don't even know what a 1031 exchange is, but it has to do with investors, people like that, that constantly turn over properties. And basically what happened was the government was going to say, we're going to put a limit on how many times you can do 1031 exchanges and what the dollar amounts are. It was going to put the kibosh on a lot of people that take advantage of 1031 exchanges. They got rid of that. NAR lobbied and say, that's going to be a disaster. Please don't do that. So that got axed out of the establish tax on unrealized capital gains. Think about that. Unrealized capital gains. So if you buy a house, and I'm just giving an example here. If you buy a house 20 years ago for $100,000 and it's now worth $300,000, but you haven't sold it yet, you have unrealized capital gains. Then we're going to tax that. Think about that for everybody that owns something. Yes, everybody's looking at me like, huh? Yeah, what? That is crazy. It was in there and we lobbied to get rid of that. All right. So that went away. Here's a third one. It's called change step-up basis in capital gains. So basically what this is, and I don't mean this to be a tax seminar, but you need to understand some of this stuff. When they say a step-up basis, if my dad purchased a house 50 years ago for $10,000 and he passes away and now turns it over to me in the will or whatever, and the house is now worth $300,000, the way the tax laws are written today is I have a $300,000 asset. Okay, so I have virtually no capital gain. However, what this said is say, we're not going to allow you to adjust that basis between 10,000 and 300,000. So when I get that property, I have to pay capital gains tax on $290,000. It was crazy. It was nuts. And once again, NAR stepped in and said, we're lobbying against this, and they got this pulled out. So where am I going with this? Your RPAC dollars have an impact. So when you start hearing things about, what does RPAC actually do for me? This is the stuff that it does for you and affects you in the real estate business. It affects your clients. So just be aware of that the next time you get a solicitation for RPAC, okay? Speaking of stuff, wow. I just sat through this. The city, this is specific to Lancaster City. So for all of you people, agents who have sold an investment property in Lancaster City, keep your antenna up right now, okay? Or are thinking about it. Even you yourself, if you're thinking about owning a property. They have some policies and guidelines that they are trying to push through right now as of September 2021. And I don't think, no, I don't have it here. Here are some things and questions that I want you to be aware of. These are all in the proposal phase right now. And when we get to the end of this, I'll let you know what we are doing as a local association as far as trying to meet with Lancaster City to get some of these things ironed out. What are the major changes to the rental license requirements in this proposal? If a unit was built prior to 1978, which that's the magic date that we all know about lead-based paint, you must maintain a safe certification and provide documentation to the city. Well, the first question is, what the heck is a safe certification? Okay, we'll talk about that a little later here. It extends the licenses from 1 to 2 years, so that's a good thing. And all rental properties need an inspection every 2 to 6 years. Emphasis on all. Every rental property. When will these changes be implemented if approved? 2023. So we have a little time right now to hopefully make some adjustments with some of the things I'm going to talk about. What happens if a landlord does not obtain a rental license when renting a property? It's $500 per unit per month that they have to pay. $500 per unit per month. By the way, has anybody ever had a property remediated for lead-based paint? Carol? Oh, why are you laughing and covering your face? Okay, we'll talk about that here in a second because that's another question. Remediation could mean a lot of things. How does a landlord obtain a lead-safe certificate for their property? Well, you have to go to the city of Lancaster to get one. I think there's a conflict of interest here. Anyway, cost is approximately $250 to get that. And if a landlord must remediate, they must hire a contractor with a lead renovation, repair, and paint certificate from the EPA, which is a legitimate certificate. You got to get one of these. Why expand the lead safety ordinance to include all rental units? This is where it gets interesting. Every time the government gives away money, people just want to use it, okay? And that's an example of this here. 11 million from HUD to mitigate in our city. It was given to us. So if we don't use the 11 million, it goes away. 50 million from Penn Medicine, Lancaster General Health to mitigate homes across Lancaster County. Once again, timeframes on these. If this money is not used, it's going to go away. So now, naturally, the city is hopping on all this and saying, hey, now's a perfect time. It's a perfect storm to get out there and let's remediate all these properties. Our homes in Lancaster City also included in this new revision. Once again, homes, not investment properties. Homes, not investment properties. The answer is no. You're safe for now. However, the city was awarded 9.7 million from HUD to address lead hazards in 4 targeted areas in Lancaster City itself. There's no cost to eligible homeowners. If a landlord wants to take advantage of that money, they have to throw in 10%. Okay. So I have a picture up here. This is a picture I took, or our group took, with Mayor Srirachi of Lancaster City. This is our government affairs group. Okay. And we met with her about 2 to 3 months ago. Now, we didn't even talk about this, but part of the reason why we meet with these government officials is so we have a seat at the table. When stuff like this hits the fan, and trust me, this is hitting the fan. When this hits the fan, we can pick up the phone and call our government officials and say, hey, you may want to have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? So here are some issues that we got to the mayor on this one prior to their public meeting. Here was the first one. Define remediate. Now I'm going to call in again. This is an article that is in, where the heck is this? There we go. This is an article that came out of House Logic, which all of you guys have access to. This talks about what it takes to remediate a house. And one of the things you're going to discover here is there's a lot of ways to remediate a house. And none of them are inexpensive. There's expensive, more expensive, expensiver, more expensiver, keeps going up, okay? So that was the first thing we did, is when we contacted the mayor, we said, hey, what does remediate mean? And you know the answer we got? I don't know. We said, we think you may want to think about this. Next one, who pays for relocation of a tenant during all this? Because that's in this also. It says the tenant must relocate as this house is being remediated. If you've seen some of this stuff, this takes a while. And who's paying for the relocation? Who's paying to put the tenant up in a new location that doesn't have lead-based paint? When we asked that question, the answer was, it's undetermined right now. And who pays for the cost of remediation? Does owner pay first and then seek reimbursement? Or can you just submit the bills to the agencies that you talk about and they take care of the bill? They had no clue. So we asked some hard questions, which they basically said, I think we have some more thought to be put into this. So once again, I mentioned NAR's PAC. This is locally what's happening locally here. That's going to affect all of us the way we're doing business with properties in the city, especially investment properties in the city. That's what I just handed out to you. If you look in there, you'll see estimated remediation costs for lead-based paint based upon the square footage of a house. And there's ways to do it correctly. There's ways not to do it. There's encapsulation, there's total removal. It's all over the board. And Lancaster City, when they proposed this, had no clue what remediation actually meant. Yeah, Jen.
I sister actually works for the city of Cleveland in the health department doing exactly this. This is exactly what the city of Cleveland is going through. They're going through every single rental property because there have been so many kids who have.
Right.
And that's the reason.
Yeah.
These poor kids were, especially during COVID, they were trapped in these houses. The lead level has increased tremendously. So I know there's a huge cost to this.
So
But it is a big problem for these properties that are not being.
So for those on Zoom, the comment was that there's a major city, Cleveland, that is also going through this right now or has been going through this right now. Now, the other thing that you're going to find here, it's not politically correct to oppose this. It's not politically correct. And that's not where we're going with it. We're not saying don't do this. We're saying answer some of these questions so that we know what it means as we're trying to advise people. Okay. So here's the last thing I'll deal with today. And Dan and I had an opportunity to discuss a little bit about this yesterday. Desktop appraisals are going to become a permanent option. And we'll talk about what a desktop appraisal is. Literally, this just came out about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago from the Federal Housing Finance Agency. During COVID, because appraisers could not get into properties, they were doing desktop appraisals. And everybody thought, well, the roof is going to cave in and, all these appraisals are going to be bogus and blah, 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 so on and so forth. And lo and behold, it didn't happen. So now they're taking a closer look at it and they're saying, you know what, this may not be a bad idea to do desktop appraisals. So I'll get into the specifics here. First of all, what is a desktop appraisal? A desktop appraisal is somebody who is doing an appraisal that never steps foot in the property. Basically, they're taking data that you provide in the MLS, taking it off of assessment cards, any other type of information that they can get. That's a desktop appraisal. Okay. So how did we get here? How did we get to the point where this was even being considered as an option? Well, appraisers, if you know any friends that are appraisers, it requires a lengthy apprenticeship period of time to even get to the point where you appraise property. And the other issue you have is this apprenticeship, you have to actually tail around with an appraiser for, I think it's like 3 years. And think about that. You're training the person to take your place. So a lot of appraisers don't even want to do this. They don't even want to get involved with this. Regulatory reforms enacted during the Great Recession have caused the appraisal process to get more and more lengthy. And also, here's some facts about appraisers. In 2013, there were 44,000 appraisers. Today, there are 40,000, and that number is dropping like a stone. So any of you that have had mortgages that are being processed, you probably within the last 6 months have experienced what we're talking about right here, which is time frame for appraisals is getting long. Okay. Desktop appraisals were a temporary option during COVID-19 just to get through that period of time. But once again, they looked at that, they looked at the process and said, you know what, this isn't a bad option. Appraisal industry has faced high demand and a shortage of appraisers during this hot market. Dan and I talked about this yesterday. Dan, you want to just briefly share with us thoughts about the appraisal process and what you deal with as a lender?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously every lender has their, their set pool of appraisers. And, I know as far as Homesale, I mean, the appraisers we have, at least in the Lancaster market, are definitely reputable individuals. And they are, obviously very busy because they don't just service us, they service other lenders as well. So, when we submit an appraisal request, we always require a 14-day delivery. And it goes through like a round robin. So if the first appraiser says, hey, I can't get this back in 14 days, then it goes to the second, to the third, to the fourth. And we'll get to a point where if we're in the third or fourth appraiser and their commitment date ends up being 21 days out, then I'll get an email from our appraisal team saying, hey, this is the best we can do. Will you accept this? So, 21 days till we get an appraisal report back. And if we're looking at a contract that's 25 or 30 days, I mean, that really starts making me sweat and go gray. So, and I think from my understanding, a lot of lenders go through the same thing. Now, on the flip side of that, and I talked about this one time before it gets a little complicated, but, appraisers are kind of cherry picking some of these orders. And if they get an order, just say for a property, I'll say the borough of Lidditz, and they happen to have another appraisal scheduled there next week, they might snatch up that order and get the report back to us in a week and a half. Again, because they're already going to be in the area. But if it's a property in Mount Gretna that nobody really wants to go to or isn't going to be in that area, I mean, it can be 4 or 6 weeks till they can get a report back to us. So I think having something like this would be, advantageous as long as it all comes together and surely just make the process.
So for those on Zoom, what Dan said is his gray hair count is increasing because of appraisals in the industry. This is something that is going to be with us starting in 2022. Yeah, Nancy. Yeah. We're getting back to the qualifications to become an appraiser, and Nancy said or talked about that you have to have a BA degree from a college. There's more and more things that are being lumped into this. Starting in 2022, FHFA will accept desktop appraisals for qualifying Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac backed mortgages, which is essentially the marketplace. Okay. So here are some things that I've heard, and I've read a lot of this stuff over the last week or so. I've also listened to objections from people. And by the way, who do you think is objecting to this online? What group of people? Appraisers. They're all going, you're crazy. This is going to implode upon everybody. And here are some of the objections that they're throwing out. But how will you know about the leaky roof, smelly carpet, rotting wood, just fill in the blank? You can't get to know that stuff unless you're physically in the property. And the answer is, you as an agent, when you're showing the property, do you smell the smelly carpet? Do you see the rotted wood? By the way, when was the last time you were at an appraisal? How long did the appraiser stay in the property? They're in and out. You know the property much better than the appraiser 99% of the time. So it's already reflected in the sale price of the home that you're offering. Or, by the way, not now, but in most markets, that's why we have home inspections. That's why we have home inspections to pick up this stuff, okay? Here's another objection. But won't they overlook the extra large closets, the high-end appliances, and the security system that make this home extra special? Okay. By the way, how much does that extra large closet add to the value? Okay. Virtually nothing. Okay. So I'm going to get into what this means for you and what it means for lenders also. So here are some unanswered questions about this. And typical government program, they roll this out there and then there's all these questions and they're like, we didn't think about that. So here's one. What properties are going to be eligible for this? They don't have an eligibility requirement at this point in time. They will, because it's now been brought up. Will there be a price break? Because they no longer have to travel out to the property. Does that $350 appraisal, is that now going to be $200? Who knows? And can individual lenders choose whether to use desktop appraisals or not? That's an unknown. I guess, and I think it's going to depend, and once again, Dan and I talked about this, and I also had a brief discussion with Terry Conklin on this. It's going to depend upon the investor in the mortgage and whether they're going to be comfortable with it or not. But I think we're going to have major lenders basically buy into this to save money, We're going to have other lenders say no. And here's what this means for you guys as agents selling real estate. Guess what? You don't know who is going to be putting a mortgage on your listing. So your pictures better be really, really good. Your descriptions better be really, really good. The days of taking photos with your smartphone in a property, this is going to push you over the limit for this, because you're going to need information that an appraiser can look at, that they can utilize in their appraisals. How about implications for lenders? This is a step toward a guaranteed closing. One of the biggest issues and the biggest heartaches that Dan just mentioned is they can get this stuff processed on time, but one of these wild cards is the appraisal. And if they start reducing the appraisal time on these, I believe we're going to have lenders who are going to start saying, I guarantee you're going to be able to settle in X period of time. Based on, now there will obviously be caveats, but one of those is not going to be the appraisal anymore. So this is on the horizon. 2022 is when this is going to hit. And who knows, all these unanswered questions that we're talking about here, I'll try to keep you apprised. And I know I'll probably be in conversation with Dan on this as this goes through, and we'll keep you up to speed on it. But I wanted to make you aware, it's a big change in the industry. Vote. Make sure you're voting today. If you didn't vote this morning before you came here, make sure you make time on the way home. Okay? And I'll leave you with this thought. And we talked a lot about our business at the beginning here. It's getting complicated. I love our business when it gets complicated because it keeps us with a job. Because it's tougher to sell a for sale by owner if they got to remember all this stuff. And by the way, do they even remember this stuff? Do they even address this stuff? No. So this comes from a guy named Paul Anderson, and that's how his name is spelled. I've yet to see any problem, however complicated, which when you looked at it the right way, didn't become still more complicated. So our business, I love it when it gets complicated like this, because you guys can now go out to buyers and sellers, give them the straight poop, so to speak, and keep us all in a job. So have a great day, everyone. What? Yeah. Hey, congratulations. Good. Mm-hmm.
We've had 2 showings and 1 already.
I'm ready for
I would love for your